Welcome to the Enhanced Living Podcast. I'm your host, Adam Kruger. I believe that we all have within us the power to be everything that we are meant to be and so much more. This show is a weekly dose of practical and spiritual principles, strategies, tips, and ideas to help you grow into the best version of yourself. Here's to becoming exactly who you were meant to become. I've been called a human Swiss Army knife because I'm a TV host, inspirational speaker and coach, live event MC and DJ, certified yoga and Ayurveda teacher, functional fitness enthusiast, author, husband, and dad with a voracious appetite for knowledge, and I'll be sharing real talks with successful people from all walks of life, spiritual teachers and masters, and experts in many different fields. I'll also share my own perspective that I've gained from over 20 years of diligent meditation and spiritual work so we can all experience enhanced living. Are you ready to evolve? Let's do this. Welcome back to Enhanced Living. Thank you so much for joining us today. I am so excited for my guest on the show. This man is a host, a journalist, a producer. He's a friend. We work together on This Is LA. He has interviewed Oprah Winfrey, Tyler Perry, Leonardo DiCaprio, so many more. He is a co-founder of Black Hollywood Live. And most importantly, I consider him my friend. Derrial, what's up, man? Welcome.
Thank you, man. I am really excited to be here. I've been looking forward to this all week.
You know, I've been looking forward to it also. Like from the minute we met, I was just like, this is a guy who knows what he wants, who is super skilled and talented at what he does. Derrial Christon, tell me right now, how did you get into the line of work of hosting? It's such a niche thing, and you know, we both know this. What brought you to it?
Well, you know, it's funny. So I'm from Ohio originally, and it's not like, you know, you grow up in Ohio and people are like, oh, what are you going to be? Oh, I'm going to be an entertainment journalist and host. You know, I mean, it's the Midwest. So a lot of times, especially when I was growing up, you do your traditional jobs. You go to college and you get a business degree, or you become a lawyer, you become whatever it is. You get your regular degree. And, you know, growing up, I always have been just fascinated with television and entertainment. I just remember watching, you know, award shows and like MTV and just always wanting to be a part of it, watching Entertainment Tonight and looking at those people and saying, wow, like I want to do that, but I didn't know what that meant and what that looked like. So now looking back at things on my career on kind of, you know, what I did to get to this place, I used to do things like I used to write for the school newspaper, and I would write for the college newspaper. In college, I had a radio show that I hosted, and all these things while I was getting a business degree, your traditional business degree, because my parents were like, hey, you know, we hear you want to go into entertainment or whatever that looks like, but make sure you have something to fall back on. So I did like most people do and got a business degree, so I would have something to fall back on. When I went to Ohio State, that's when kind of things shifted, I think, a lot, because when I was doing my radio show, I actually started dating someone who she ironically worked at a magazine in New York called Vibe magazine at the time. And I was telling her, like, yeah, I really want to get into entertainment. I want to be like, you know, like Ryan Seacrest and like, you know, I want to do that kind of stuff. And I want to work on Entertainment Tonight, but I don't know how to do that. She was like, well, listen, why don't you know, kind of look at what I'm doing right now at the magazine. Maybe I can introduce you to the team there. And maybe there's something there where you could possibly like start interning there. It's in New York. If you get an internship, you know, it's right in the mix of the entertainment business, and maybe you'll learn kind of the skills on what you want to do to get there. Because I knew I also didn't want to go, like, I was an accounting and marketing major, and I knew I didn't want to necessarily go into broadcasting because I wanted to go on more of the entertainment side of the business versus hardcore news reporting, you know, on a 5-car pileup on the 101, you know. So I always say that the universe brings you what you really are supposed to be doing. So I ironically was submitted to go to do the internship at Vibe, which was like at the time the hottest entertainment magazine out there. And it had a sister magazine called Spin, which everyone knows Spin magazine as well. So I had applied for a internship. My at the time, the person I was dating, she kind of put in a good word for me. And I got accepted for the first round, but it was a fall quarter of my school, and I found out kind of late. So it was kind of a rush of like, oh, wait, you guys want me to come to New York right now? It's the fall. I had just started classes. I didn't really know how this was going to work. I didn't have any contacts in New York. My mom basically was like, okay, we'll figure it out. I'll help you, find a place. But it was, when I was looking at it, it was going to be very expensive. And at that time, they told me they weren't paying for internships. It was basically, you were working for free. So I was like, wow, okay, I'm going to be in New York. I'm working for free. I'll figure it out. I'd had some savings from other jobs and internships I had done in college. So I was like, you know what, forget it. If I have to blow through it, I'll just blow through it. Ironically, I told the person who hired me at the time about kind of like my situation, and she said, you know what, I don't know, how about you do this? She said, I don't feel comfortable with you moving all the way here and having, basically this rush and having no contacts here. She said, why don't you wait until the summer? We'll do this internship again. You're going to be at the top of the list. Don't worry. We like you. Stay in contact with me, and I'll try and pull you in during the summer. Fast forward to the summer. I stayed in contact with her. It ended up happening. She pulled me into the internship. I actually got a paid internship, was able to move to New York. And during that time period, my roommate ended up being from Brooklyn. So he let me stay with his family in New York. So I didn't have to pay for any place to stay. I had now an internship where I was making money, and I was in New York City at the hottest magazine. So now my internship was in the event marketing department at the time, because once again, I was still trying to figure out this whole, what does it mean to be a journalist? What does it mean to be a reporter? How do you get into entertainment news? So they put me into the position that was open was the event marketing team, but they said they worked very closely with editorial because they kind of work hand in hand. And I was like, well, that's perfect, because every journalist, as we know, no matter if you're a host, a journalist, a reporter, whatever it may be, you have to know how to write and tell a story. So I was able to intern that summer. It went amazing. They ended up asking me to come back another summer. Then it was time to graduate, and they offered me a job in the marketing department. Same kind of within the same position. I took it, didn't even think twice about it, moved to New York, and things just kind of started happening from there. All the chips started lining up. So as I'm in the event marketing department, I started doing a lot of the events, and so working with celebrities, and like I was at Diddy's summer house during that time period, and helping them put together birthday parties for Diddy, or Beyonce, or all those names, and Tommy Hilfiger, and all these people at that time. So I was really lucky. I had a great boss. She really believed in me. And she was letting me kind of explore and figure things out at that time of like kind of what my career path was supposed to look like. Because I was always very open to her of saying that I want to move into and being in front of the camera, but I still had to do my job. So basically what ended up happening was, because I was working so closely with the editorial department, they ended up started using me for different interviews. Writing different interviews while I was still working in the marketing and events department. So I was getting kind of two-sided of experience at the time, which is great for me. And then I think my biggest moment of where it was like ding, like that moment where it was like, all right, this is supposed to be, was they had the Vibe Awards. And their reporter for the red carpet, for some reason, I don't remember what happened. It was a conflict and they couldn't attend the event. So they said, hey, Derrial, why don't you come do the red carpet and do the interviews? You talk to everybody. You're great. This is this is a passion of yours. We'll bring you in. They brought me in. My first interview was Mariah Carey on the red carpet. Wow. And I remember talking to her, and her statement actually is what gave me the confidence, because we just had a good rapport on the carpet. And she said to me, she was like, I don't know how I ended up telling her kind of like, hey, this is my first night kind of doing a red carpet. This is what my dream was. And I get to talk to Mariah Carey. And she was like, you're going to go far in this business. This is a perfect line of business for you. You have a natural talent. And I just remember always like that stuck in my head. And after that, I was like, I can do this. Mariah Carey said I can do this. So I kept kind of trekking along. I was doing little different jobs. Like they started putting me on more of doing hosting gigs for them or reporting gigs for them. And then eventually there was an opportunity for me to work in the office, in the LA office, because we were always doing different things here. And one of my friends who was out here, who was an actor, said to me, he was like, if you really want to get into entertainment reporting, all the big networks like, CBS and where you want to work, like E! News and Entertainment Tonight and Extra, yes, they have headquarters in New York, but a lot of their reporters live in LA. So I suggest that you move out to LA, take that job, move out to LA and see what happens. So moved to LA and, still was trying to figure it all out. But one thing led to another. I started, another friend has suggested that I start taking classes with Marky Costello, who's a pretty big teacher in LA as we know, of teaching host. And manages, people like Jason Kennedy, who's on E! News right now and has been on for many, many, many years, has a very successful career. And I started taking her class and learning kind of like the really ins and outs of hosting, the hosting side versus reporting side. And it opened it up to a whole new world of how many things you just, need to know, like red carpets and how to interview properly and keep personality and, just really fundamental things to help you in your career. And there was a guy in my class who would always leave. He was Marky's assistant at the time, and he would always leave and go to this thing called AfterBuzz TV. And he said he was doing these recap shows on AfterBuzz TV, which was a network owned by Maria Menounos. And Maria Menounos, as we know, is one of the biggest journalists in entertainment. She's worked everywhere from E!, Extra, Entertainment Tonight, all of the above. And I was like, well, how do I get a part of this? Like, how do I get on AfterBuzz TV? He said, I'll introduce you to the team there. We'll see what happens. But he's like, I think they would like you. And I always had a joke that I wanted to be the first Black guy on Entertainment Tonight, but I missed the boat on that. I mean, Kevin Frazier is on Entertainment Tonight, so I was like, okay, I'll be the second or the third. I'm fine with that. And so I ended up going to AfterBuzz for a meeting. They had like kind of like he introduced me to the team. I had a meeting. They looked at my stuff, and AfterBuzz TV is a great learning place for a lot of new hosts as well, because it's a great place for just doing recap shows and just kind of really learning the business. So I ended up meeting Maria and Kevin Undergaro, who's her husband, and who they're both the owners of AfterBuzz. And one thing led to another. I started doing shows there. I did shows there for several years while I was still taking Marky's class. Lots of fun. I mean, it was a really good learning tool for me. And then me being the ambitious person that I am, I'm always thinking, what's next? What can I do next to get to that next place? Because at this point, I'm like, okay, I want to be on one of these big news outlets. I want to work, on Entertainment Tonight or E! How do I get there? And so I was always kind of that guy that was in Maria's ear whenever she would come into the studio, and Kevin's ear. He would have these like little sessions where all the hosts that they hired to do the network or had on the network, that he would do little, like almost like small business fairs where he would kind of teach them the business and tell them about things that are going on. So every time we had those little meetings, I always would talk to him and say, hey, I really want to get into this. How do I do this? How do I do this? And so one day we were just kind of talking, and I had an idea to do a hot topic show, that was focused more on like the like people of color, more of the urban side, because there was E! and Entertainment Tonight and all those things. But I was like, how do I make myself a little different and stand out? And when I was talking to Kevin about it, he's like, Derrial, that's a great idea. But he's like, why just stop at one show? Why don't you, he's like, with your experience at working at Vibe and Spin and just what you've done, why don't we talk about maybe creating, a new form of a digital network that could be the brother sister of AfterBuzz, but focus more on people of color. And it was like, once again, one of those wow moments, because I was like, wow, I'm thinking small. I was thinking one show. He's thinking, let's build a network, step by step. And at that time, there was a transition in the business. It wasn't just about being on TV. That's where, people started doing a lot more YouTube shows, and the digital space was getting more heavy with just like the transition of you can make money digitally. You didn't have to just go to network necessarily. So we came up with the idea of creating multiple shows. And then I wanted to do something where the focus was not just on actors in entertainment, because if we look now at these big outlets like the E! News and Entertainment Tonight and all those places, if you weren't Halle Berry, or if you weren't Will Smith or Denzel Washington or Viola Davis, you weren't getting coverage. If you were a new up and coming actor, or if you were a new up and coming producer or a writer, they're not interviewing you. I wanted to build something to make it a little different where, there was BET at the time, but BET was still focused more on the bigger actors in the African American and Latino community. I wanted to build a place where you could actually be an upcoming writer or be a new host like myself and get interviewed and have a safe space where you could learn the craft. Because in my mind, I'm like, well, one day those people will be the big people. So let's help build their career, and it would help build mine as well. It would help build my name as a producer and as a host, because I started leading one of the Hot Topics lead shows on the network. So, Black Hollywood Live, we built it, and Maria and Kevin came on board as co-creators and producers for it, and they've been just a blessing in my life, because they also let me use their studio. So a lot of things that I would have had to worry about, I didn't have to worry about. We shared the studio. We did shows outside of there. We continue to share the studio and do shows outside of there, and that started to kind of elevate my career. As Kevin said to me, he's like, listen, Derrial, you don't want to just be a host, because if you work at a network and you're just a host, you can be replaced at any time. Become your own boss. Produce, because that way you kind of have your hats on both sides, and you make yourself more desirable to a network, because you can do both. So Black Hollywood Live started, we started getting success, and our kind of big moment was we were doing a show, after show for Greenleaf, which is on Oprah's network for OWN. And she actually gave us a shout out, and also called in to the network and did at that time a phone interview, and then she tweeted it. And it was like, I was actually in Ohio, ironically, because it was during a time period where I didn't do the interview. Someone else did the interview, one of our other hosts on the network. But I got a call, and like my phone was blowing up. People were like, Oprah just tweeted about your network. Oprah just tweeted about your network. I'm like, what are you talking about? And they're like, look at Twitter. And I'm like, what? And I look, and literally, that's when I saw that moment. It was like that, ah! I'm like, the queen of all media has acknowledged something little old me from Ohio has helped build. So, it was like that validation of knowing that I was in the right path. And from that moment, things started to really kind of change for me. They always say that do the work and people will notice. And I would say that has been the case, because that opportunity with Black Hollywood Live opened up for me to started to get noticed from other networks. The Reels channel from that saw me, and they were doing a show called Broken Famous about celebrities who were famous who had gone broke, like 50 Cent, TLC, Johnny Depp. And they asked me to be a correspondent on the show. Then they did another show that was Celebrity Feuds. And it was, about like the housewives who fight with each other and that type of thing. And they asked me to be on that show. So then things started to trickle along. BET, they asked me to host for their BET Awards and host their BET experience, which was huge for me. And they asked me to do it for 4 years. And things just started to happen. Then CBS came along, and This Is LA came along. And from there, the doors really started to open. So Black Hollywood Live has been that nucleus for me to help me really build my career. And I'm really proud of where it's gone and become. And there's still a lot more work I need to do with it. But, right now, even I'm really proud, because this is the time with what's going on in the world with Black Lives Matter and the movements. I want to help take Black Hollywood Live in the forefront of that. And even now, it's helped me to kind of elevate my career in many other ways, because now people have noticed, because I created Black Hollywood Live, they've asked me to come on their shows. Like Entertainment Tonight recently hired me to be a co-host on their show, just because they saw the work I've done, and they saw that I created Black Hollywood Live. So it's been very important in my career.
Okay, first of all, wow. There's so much.
Sorry, that was the long. I was trying to shorten it. That was the long version.
No, it's perfect. It's wonderful, honestly, because for the people who are listening, I think it's really important to see the trajectory of what you've done and understand the work that went in. There's so much to unpack. First of all, I'm blown away by the similarities and the parallels in our lives. I mean,
Yeah.
my degree is in marketing as well. I finished with, that whole situation. I had my crossover with Marky Costello as well. I did after shows for a different network, but I was the main, host for 3 of them. So, it's really interesting because, I mean, I've known you for a while now, but we never really got into that whole, like the whole past. And there are so many parallels, and there's a lot that I want to unpack because, you're talking about how you're growing up in Ohio, you're going to school, you know what you want to do, but at the same time, your parents are like, hey, listen, you need to have your degree just for something to fall back on, which I went through a similar thing, like get your degree. That's the most important thing that you need. But I want to talk about this idea of falling back on something because, from my perspective, anyone who follows their passion, follows their dreams, thinks that, or not thinks, but understands that we all have a purpose in this life and there's something that we're meant to be doing. I feel like the idea or the notion of falling back on something is just like, whatever. There is no such thing as plan B because there's plan A, and that is my plan, and I know I'm going to succeed. What are your thoughts on that? Because I really think that personally, if you're always in the back of your mind, well, I can always fall back on, you're never really putting all of your effort into what it is that you truly want to do.
Yeah, that's true. I think a lot of it, it's a very interesting thing because I battled with it for a very long time because it's hard to change something that you grew up and were taught and it's just drilled in your head. Do this, do it this way. This is how you will be successful. But as we find out in life, that's not true. There's your journey is different from my journey. My journey is different from my parents' journey, different from my sister's journey. And I honestly, the really big things in my career started to happen after I quit my full-time job. So in that process of that job at Vibe, I quit because I wanted to just give all my energy to focusing on Black Hollywood Live, hosting, and I took a leap of faith. I had saved some money, so I had a little bit something to fall back on for the rainy day, but I honestly, until I put all my energy into it, things didn't really happen. They happen more quickly after that. And because it's just a hard and tough feeling to be 1 foot in and 1 foot out. And I'm one of those people, I like to give everything 100%. When I'm into it, I'm into it. And I agree with you. It's tough. It's scary. It's scary to think about, okay, well, I don't want to necessarily, I don't want to say, you don't want to fall back on something and say, oh, I just want to fall. I'll have this always to fall back on, because it also gives you an excuse to maybe not pursue things as hard as you could. But it's scary. And for me, most of my really bigger success came after I committed 100% and lost the philosophy on, oh, well, I still can fall back on my degree, because at the end of the day, that wasn't what was in my heart. It's not really what I wanted to do. So I had to come to terms with, it's going to be okay. The universe will reward me the way I'm supposed to be rewarded if I'm committed to this. It may not look like what I think it's going to look like. Maybe it isn't that I'm on E! News. Maybe I'm on Entertainment Tonight. Maybe I'm on a digital network, whatever it may be. But the commitment to it makes the difference. And it's really tough to walk away from fear, or at least it was for me, to walk away from the fear of this stable thing to go to something that's unknown. And that's been my biggest battle in my career. I actually feel like the universe has made me stay in this career for a reason too, because I've learned a lot about myself and taking chances. And you if you really want it, you got to take a chance. I mean, there's a way to be smart about it, but I'm not saying quit your job and you don't have anything saved and just, you could be homeless tomorrow. You got to be smart about your plan, but build a plan and just go with that. It's going to be okay.
I agree with that wholeheartedly. And I think a lot of people, will look at certain different professions or different jobs or different opportunities and go, well, this is the safe thing. This is the secure thing. When in actuality, nothing is guaranteed in life, right? You can work 25 years as an accountant at a firm, like Jim Carrey's dad, or I think it was like 40 years, doing something you absolutely don't love, and then get fired at the drop of like at nothing, at no notice whatsoever, versus following your passion and your dreams. And I believe it's a quote that's I'd rather fail at something I love than succeed at something I hate, or something like that. It's I don't remember exactly the quote. I'm probably butchering it, but you talk a lot about intention and you talk about the universe, and I'm right on board with you. I really truly believe that when you set your intention, you're sending that energetic vibe out into the ether, right? And energy attracts of like kind. So if you are sending that intention out there and believing full force that everything is going to work out, not knowing exactly how, that things do work out for you. I think that, your story is really phenomenal because when you really look at it, you're seeing all these, I don't even want to call them risks, because you're just setting your intention, you're going after it, and things are working out.
Yeah.
A lot of people will set that intention, or maybe they think they want something, but they're not giving it 100%, and deep down inside they don't believe it's actually going to happen. And I think that really the takeaway here, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that when you truly believe in yourself and you truly believe that what you're doing is what you're meant to be doing, and you believe that you can't fail, then really you can't fail, you're going to succeed.
Yeah. It's a shift in your mind that you have to believe. And like I said, it took me a while to realize that. But once I did, and I still battled through it. Don't get me wrong, I'm not perfect. But I'm more centered now than I ever have been, because I accept it more, because I used to live so much on fear, because I was so scared of not making it, or not making enough money while I'm trying to pursue it, and having to move back to Ohio. Like there were so many fears that were in my mind that were diluting the fact of just let go, stay the path. If you stay the path, but work hard, give it your all, and it'll work out in the way it's supposed to work out. And I'm reminded of it still every day, even during this COVID period. I've had moments where I'm like, okay, everything's shut down. Productions are shut down. What does this mean? Is this a universe? Give me a sign if this is what I'm supposed to still be doing. I'm not getting any younger. So I'm like, what's happening here? And every time it never fails. It may not even come on the day that I ask it, but things just pop up, and it reminds me, you are in the right lane, and just continue to believe and work hard and put your energy towards what you really want, and the universe will reward you back.
I couldn't agree more. I think a lot of it is really about trust. And I want to touch on a couple things. One, you were talking about how when you started Black Hollywood Live, this was something about giving a voice for people who are up and coming, and people of color who are up and coming, who wouldn't have gotten the coverage otherwise. I think that that's so profound and especially important and relevant now with the Black Lives Matter movement going, which, by the way, for point of reference, the date today is July 18th, Saturday, 2020. And in America, we're still having discussions over race, which to me is just, it's bananas. It's the most ridiculous thing in the world, as far as I'm concerned, that even has to happen, and that people aren't recognized as equals in general. Like, that's just, I don't know, maybe I'm a bleeding heart liberal with an idealist, perspective, but, to me, at this day and age, and in any day and age, to judge anyone by anything other than the quality of their character, I think is absolutely asinine, but that's a whole other set of issues. But I really think that you were at the forefront of giving a voice to people who were just not being recognized. Talk to me about that a little bit. What do you think the impact is? The fact that you have Black Hollywood Live, that's been started, for so long, and now it's finally coming to the forefront and becoming even more relevant. Not to say that, when it was, mentioned by Oprah, that it wasn't already huge at that point, but now it's really at the forefront. Talk to me about that a little bit.
Well, Adam, listen, the Oprah thing, obviously very proud of. But one thing that I'm the most proud of with the network is that, because, like you were saying, because I've been able to give people voices that maybe wouldn't have gotten those voices or been recognized for those voices before, we've had so many talented hosts on the network who have started with the network and gone on, who didn't have a name, no one knew who they were, they had 100 followers, to now their careers have just really blown up, and they credit Black Hollywood Live to helping them with their careers. Like there's Ebony K. Williams is one of them. She's one of I love her to death. She's on a show right now called Black News on Revolt, but she left Black Hollywood Live, went on to be a CBS correspondent, went on to be a Fox News correspondent, and then now she is on the Revolt Network with her own show. There's countless others. There's a girl actually by the name of Stacey Ike who Oprah handpicked to work on her network as a host after watching her on the after show that I was speaking about, Greenleaf. So those that Kevin John, he's another one. He's one of the top CBS News reporters right now, and he started off in my network. And those are the things that I'm very proud of. As far as even actors, Jay Ellis, who's now on a show on HBO called Insecure, he did an interview with us when we first opened Black Hollywood Live, the doors of Black Hollywood Live, and he was a no-name. No one knew who he was, and he always tells me, even when I see him now, he's become, they're now positioning him as the next Denzel Washington. And he tells me all the time, he's like, no matter what, I will always come, give you guys credit because you help people introduce me to people and has stayed with me through the course of my career, and I'm staying with you through the course of yours. Tiffany Haddish, I was at the Golden Globes doing them this year, and Tiffany Haddish, we would interview her when she was just doing very beginning, just the comedy junket. She was an unknown comic, but we were like paying attention to her, and she came on the network literally at the Golden Globes this year. She did not stop. She was rushed into the Golden Globes. I yelled her name with my co-producer at the time, whose name is Ashley Gray. We were like, hey, Tiffany, Black Hollywood Live, we just want to ask you one question. She literally stopped her publicist, said, I have to go talk to Black Hollywood Live. And she came over, the first thing she said was, I will always stop for you guys because you guys were there for me at the beginning of my career when no one else was doing interviews with me. So no matter how successful I get, I will always come and talk to you guys. I love, like, that makes me, I could get emotional off of that. That makes me feel so good because I feel like that's the voice that I want to give people, and there's so much, especially now because of what's going on and the shift that's happening in Hollywood where finally, it isn't Oscar so white. Well, hopefully that'll stay the same, but we now see that the Academy has opened the doors to more people of color in the voting process. We now see that Hollywood is accepting more projects from people of color because of just the change that's needed. And I'm proud that I feel like I have contributed to helping that movement get created.
I think that is absolutely just, first of all, the Tiffany Haddish story gave me chills because it's so true. Like, I literally got shivers because what you put out is magnified, right? So you see people who are, vibrating in a negative space, and things just seem to always go wrong for those people, and they don't know why. They can't figure it out, and I can tell you straight up right now that it's because you're vibrating in that space where you're constantly putting out the wrong energy. But when you shift it on a different perspective and you put out that positive energy and you're giving people a platform who wouldn't necessarily have one to begin with, right? What you put out comes back to you tenfold. And so right there, that's just the perfect example of someone who was given an opportunity at the beginning, and then she ended up exploding into this, mega superstar, right? You can't go anywhere without hearing about Tiffany Haddish. I just read a story about how she literally straight up turned down a straight offer from Chris Rock's movie Top 5 because she was like, listen, I don't want to be naked on camera. That's not my brand. I'm a comedian. This is what I want to do. And she stood in her own energy, her own strength. And she's like, no, I'm not going to do this. Even though it would have possibly, elevated her even more. She's like, no, that doesn't vibe with what I want to do for myself. And so she turned it down, which I think is brilliant. But the fact is that this is a person who then came back and said, yeah, no, I'm not interviewing anybody. But no, with Black Hollywood Live, I will talk to them because it's the energy that you're putting out. That's my perspective anyhow.
Yeah, no, and I agree. And it also, kudos to her for being humble that she is and still, not forgetting the little people like myself, so.
Well, first of all, I have to interject. You're not a little person, okay? You've done so much, and regardless of what you've done, Derrial, like for me, from my perspective, the person that you are is what makes you such an amazing human being. It's not what you've done. I don't care what you've done. I mean, even though what you've done is very impressive and it's wonderful, that's not what it's about for me. It's about the person's heart. And that's why I wanted you on the show today, because you have an amazing heart. You are an amazing person. And that's what I want people to understand, is that when you come from your own truth and you come from, how can I add value? With Black Hollywood Life, sure, yes, of course, you're trying to increase your own career, your own standing, and it's been an amazing springboard for you. But at the same time, it wasn't just, okay, what can I get out of this? You were like, what can I do for other people who are in a position where they're being ignored? And that reads. I mean, it's funny you brought up Stacey Ike. We were co-hosts on the Big Bang Theory after show for about a week at the stream.tv. That's where I did the after shows. I knew her for like a week, and then she was like, yeah, I'm out. I got something else. And then she went to AfterBuzz, and we were connected on social for a while, and I watched her kind of explode, and I was like, wow, good for her. So it's just so funny.
That's
like
so crazy. We're like literally the same, you know?
I'm telling you.
My brother from another mother.
Right? I'm telling you, like the parallels are they're just bananas. So I want to know real quick, what's lighting you up right now? What's got you feeling the most hopeful for where we're at this moment in time? And I want to know from a personal perspective, and if you want to say from a global perspective, then great. I mean, I know we're talking about Oscars So White and how we're finally seeing a shift, which, you know, I mean, Batwoman was just recast.
Yeah, a Black woman. Yeah,
there you go.
A black queer woman. You know, yeah. So it's big.
It is big, because finally I feel like the shift is going towards, you know, hey, let's just go with the person who has the most talent. Let's go with the person who fits the role, not trying to fit a quota, not trying to, like, that's where it should be. It should be the person who's got what is necessary for the position, as opposed to what they look like. Does that make, I mean, do you know what I mean? Yeah.
I mean, we're slowly but surely getting there. I mean, there's still a lot more work that needs to be done, but listen, you have to, I understand that everything can't change at one time. So things are being recognized now, and it's a catch-22, because there's everything that's going on with the Black Lives Matter movement right now. And, you know, Breonna Taylor and George Floyd and Eric Garner and Ahmaud Arbery. I mean, you know, it breaks my heart that it takes that for a change to happen. But on the flip side, all of those people, they got their wings are just so big right now, because of they caused this shift that is needed. And you know, I know that just things are in an uproar. I mean, not only are we fighting a deadly disease that we're running from, COVID, but we also are in the middle of a racial war. And, you know, I won't even get into the politics of who our president is, because everybody has their own opinion. But we are in a detrimental place, and it's things are hot right now. I mean, it's just, you know, people are in their emotions. I'm in my emotions. I mean, there's weeks that, you know, I don't, you know, I want to cry. I'm depressed. I'm angry, just because of all the things that are going on. And I look, you know, unfortunately, you know, you watch the news and sometimes you have to stop watching the news and take a break from it, because it's like information overload. And then especially if you're looking on social media, videos of just everything that's going on, from Karens to Kens to, you know, all the craziness. But on the flip side, because I believe in the universe and the power of the universe, I feel like these things are all needed to happen for a reason, whether hurtful or not. We needed this major thing to happen for a major shift to happen. And I think that I'm seeing people become more woke than they ever have been. And you know, it's not over. We got to continue to fight for justice and equality, and you know, but it's a slow process. But I do feel like these things are happening for a reason, for this shift to really happen. And I think that it's going to be it's going to be something that stays around, versus just, oh, 2020, this is happening in 2020, all this happened, but we're going to go back to our old ways. I think the old way of doing things, it's not going to be accepted anymore, you know?
No, it's over. It's over. I mean, you know, you said before, we're not going to talk about who the president is, because everyone has their own opinion. Look, there's opinion and then there's fact. Fact, it's an absolute, I don't even want to use the negative words. It's abhorrent what we have at the leadership position of this country at this current present moment. However, I will say this, and don't get this twisted for anything meaning I support it. I'm glad it happened, and I'm glad it happened because before it happened, we had everything was nice on the surface, but there was this underlying like tone of keeping certain people down and trying to raise other people up, and this atrocity that got raised to this level of power really just called it out and basically shone a spotlight on the problem. And so, like I always say, you can't deal with an issue unless you can't handle your problem unless you can acknowledge that you're holding on to it in the first place. And this has turned into a spotlight on this country to basically show people, hey, look, we're holding on to a big problem here. Now let's heal it. Let's move forward.
Yeah.
So with that, I want to know what comes next for you. What are you looking forward to most with respect to your personal stuff, your career, and also it's a kind of a two-part question that I want to end on here, which is how do you keep yourself in a positive place? How do you come back from that position where, you know, you said sometimes you're in a position where you just want to cry, you're frustrated, you're exhausted, you can't deal with it anymore. Obviously, you're a positive person. Obviously, you believe in the power of intention, and you believe that there's a universal force at will that is working with you as it works with all of us.
Yeah.
How do you keep yourself centered and bring yourself back to that position? This is what I want to share with everyone.
Yeah. I mean, you know, I have just come to a place of every day is a growing process for me. I'm trying to be as centered as I can and not let the negativity of the things that are going on around me truly affect me, even though that's hard because, like I said, they do affect me. For me, I just want to continue to grow as a person and just work more and continue to work more on my faith and belief. Because I think that that's really what will get you through these hard times. If you have a strong faith and belief in things and belief in the universe, meaning faith and belief in the universe, that those are the things that can help you get through these darker moments, because I think that's what's helped me kind of push through. Even when I have those bad days, I wake up the next morning, I'm like, okay, let me wash my face. Let me, you know, it's going to be okay. Universe is going to grant me what I need to be granted with, and I will continue to be a better person. And I think that faith and belief is what's getting me through these harder times. As far as like what I want next in my career, you know, it's interesting, Adam, through this COVID moment where I've had a lot of time to kind of sit back and reflect on myself. As much as I love being on camera and I want to continue to be on camera, I enjoy it like no other. My focus now is even more to produce projects. You know, there's been a lot of ideas that I have that I've sat with because I've had a lot of time by myself that I want to create. And I think now is the time where the industry is actually more willing to accept and look at these projects from people of color where they wouldn't have been as open several years ago. So we see now even there's a lot more projects being greenlit that literally have Black leads, like we're talking about Supergirl and just, you know, all these things, you know, not Supergirl, Batwoman, but all these different things that are just changing. And I want to be a part of that and build and continue to build great content and open up opportunities for other hosts, other actors, other producers. That's becoming more important to me, and making, you know, smart content that is helping our culture versus taking us backwards. So that's become a really important task for me. I have a lot of projects that I want to work on. And like I said, I still love being in front of the camera, but I also want to really build more content that and producing. I think the next level for me is like really producing a lot more content for TV and for a digital space.
I love that, Derrial, and I have absolutely zero doubt that you will succeed. The level of intention and hope, and I don't even want to use hope, it's more a belief. You believe in yourself. I believe in you. I know you can do this. And honestly, man, thank you so much for joining me on today's episode. This was just wonderful. Thank you for being here with us.
No, I mean, listen, it made my day. I feel like I also just had like a nice therapy session. I feel like I can go with my Saturday and feel good about Saturday. You helped me work through some things that, the last couple of days I've been trying to work through. So I appreciate you even more.
Oh, my man. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of Enhanced Living Podcast. If you enjoyed what you heard today, please share it with a friend. And if you haven't already, subscribe, rate, and review the show on your favorite podcast player. If you have any questions, comments, or feedback, feel free to reach me directly at enhancedliving.net. Thanks for listening.